What do I need to do to take care of a swimming pool heater so I definitely don't have any problems with it? This video can help you with that information. So you bought a new pool heater, and during the buying process, you discovered that pool heaters cost approximately $1 million, and you would like yours to last a little while because you can't be buying more if this thing breaks. And you've heard that pool heaters can break sometimes. I think it's fair to say they certainly don't make them like they used to. 30 years plus was the norm for every pool heater back, when my grandparents were running the pool. And I don't really think it's like that these days for most pool heaters. And there's definitely some out there that can fail early. And if you give them a reason to, then they're probably going to. So let's take some steps to make sure that doesn't happen to your new pool heater. So in no particular order, something you don't want to do is have stagnant water in your pool heater. Some people have bypasses built in, which is something that is, usually speaking, a good idea for a pool heater in order that you could take it offline during periods of time where you have particularly bad water chemistry in the pool, or you're going to do like a super chlorination or something like that. No sense to expose the heater to that, so you take it offline. You can do that with a pool heater, and it's a good idea to a certain extent, but if left too long, it can be a problem. I would say up to around 1 day, 24 hours is how long I would let a pool heater sit with just stagnant water in it, no water movement, before I would need to do something. I need to open up the valves and allow water to flow through the heater again, or I need to basically go through a winterizing process and open all the drains and blow air and, get all the water out of there and disassemble the pressure switch and drain it and all that stuff, or else you're going to have problems with stagnant water. So I would say that, 24 hours maximum. Up to about that point, I'd say you're pretty safe to go ahead and take your heater offline for a day like that. But any more than that, I'm probably thinking of taking some sort of action to prevent damage from, stagnant water is not good, right? It's immediately you're going to have bacteria and algae growth. It's warm inside a heater. It could cause all sorts of problems because the pH of the water could change, and all of these things could cause some downstream issues. And if we're trying to protect a heater, just better that we don't let it sit with stagnant water inside of it. So here's one of the number one things that's going to break a pool heater, and that's going to be high chemical sanitizer levels. And that's chemical sanitizer, that's your chlorine or your bromine. And there's a certain amount that it's expected the heater's going to be exposed to in the day-to-day operation of your pool. With free chlorine, we typically would advise 2 to 5 parts per million of free chlorine in your pool water, so that pool water goes into the heater, and so it's exposed to a little bit of chlorine. But what if that 2 to 5 parts per million was what if it was 20 parts per million? Would that be a problem for a pool heater? Well, it definitely wouldn't cause it to just cease to function right then and there, but you could pretty much count that you're doing some incremental damage here to the internals, the metal components that this heater is comprised of. Something that's really bad for pool heaters in particular is, we're talking like parts per million. We were talking like 20 parts per million was potentially incrementally bad, right? What's really bad for pool heaters is to install an erosion feeder. So that's your chlorine puck feeder downstream from a heater, but fail to put a chlorine resistant check valve in between the erosion feeder and your heater. And what can happen is you can and will get concentrated amounts of chlorine that travel backwards through the system when your pump is off. During that period of time your pump is off, water can and will travel backwards. A corrosion resistant check valve would protect your heater for a fairly small investment. And without one, you can develop concentrated pockets of chlorine that track backwards and go up into your heater and kind of just accumulate inside of your heater, which is not where you want concentrated pockets of chemical sanitizer to be accumulating. In the parts per million, no measurement, because it's not like 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 parts per million. You could have 50, 100, 200, 500, a lot. You could have super concentrated amounts of chlorine. And if you have that, your heater is going to be like 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, probably not more than that. Hey, is the heater leaking? What's going on there? Oh, turns out it's totally destroyed internally. It's your fault technically, and there's no repair. You're going to need a new heater. So let's save you from that and just avoid high sanitizer levels in your heater. Another thing you should note on that. So you know how some people put chlorine in their skimmer basket because it's super convenient. Looks like a perfect place to put chlorine, right? you are drawing concentrated chlorine through your system and then subsequently through your heater. And there's arguments online. Some pool pros are like, I've been doing it for years, it's fine. Some people are in the category I'm in and say you shouldn't do that. They make chlorine erosion feeders for a reason, and I don't want to put concentrated chlorine into my pump filter heater. Further, there could be a potential safety issue with the skimmer itself. You know, if you've got a bunch of chlorine piled in there and you turn the pump off, what do you think happens? It's not just like a acceptable level of chlorine gases in there. It's enough that if you take the lid off before you finish that motion of taking it off, you are already laying on the ground. And I'm 100% not joking about that. That's how hard that stuff hits you. And I'm 6 feet tall. You know, I'm pretty far away from that stuff. What if it was like a little kid and pulled the lid off? A residential skimmer lid usually isn't screwed down in place, and they open it up, and I don't know, it's like definitely going to be a concern, right? Something that we would absolutely want to avoid. And you would if you're not putting chlorine pucks into your skimmer basket, don't do it. But for these purposes, don't do it because it's bad for your heater. So chemically speaking, something else that you should probably also be aware of if you're trying to make this heater last is that low pH is very bad for metals, and it's going to cause damage to the metals. Such even a single event at very low pH can strip metals from your pool heater. And you will know this because you will find those metals inside of your swimming pool. They will plate onto something. Like if you have a, white plastic, there's a lot of white plastic in swimming pools for various reasons. If you have some white plastic and just overnight, did that turn like brown/orange? What's up with that? And you scrub it and it does not come off. That could be the metals from inside of your heater. If you have a heater failure due to a catastrophic chemical event here, that's kind of like what I would expect to see. So keep your eye out for weird stains and keep the pH in the acceptable range, 7.2 to 7.8. And recognize that when you lower pH, like if we're at a pH of 8, which is a little bit high for a swimming pool, a pH of 7 is 10 times more acidic than a pH of 8. If we're at a pH of 6, that's 100 times more acidic than a pH of 8. pH of 5 is 1,000 times more acidic than a pH of 8. You see, when you say it like that, well, it sounds pretty bad, right? Like, it doesn't sound like something I want to swim in. And if somebody told you, having water 1,000 times or 10,000 times too acidic is bad for pool equipment, like, you probably couldn't be too surprised, because it certainly doesn't sound very good, and it's not. So you're going to avoid very low pH and that water going into your pool heater. This warrants mentioning. What if you had really high, like smoking high sanitizer levels, and you had really low pH? What happens then? Well, probably you go heater shopping, because it's very, very unforgiving to have that event where you have both very high sanitizer levels, high chlorine levels, at the same time that you have very low pH of the water. That's very, very bad for pool heaters, and of pretty much everything you definitely don't want to do. Never don't want to do that one for sure. So let's talk about one more thing. This wouldn't be a Poindexter Swimming Pool Steve video if we didn't talk about some crazy thing that you've never heard about before. So let's talk about galvanic corrosion and how it's ruining your pool heater tonight at 5. Now let's talk about it right now. So galvanic corrosion potentially could be ruining your pool heater because your pool heater is part of a galvanic couple with your swimming pool and with other swimming pool equipment. Broken down to simplicity, a primary battery is dissimilar metals placed into a salt water solution. Measure the two outsides and you're going to read a voltage. That's how you make a primary battery. So what if you had a 25,000 gallon pool and you had a bunch of like salt in it and total dissolved solids in it, and then you put a bunch of dissimilar metals into there from like rebar and iron and all kinds of stuff are going to be in swimming pool waters, stainless steel and copper and who knows what else. So what you've done here is you've essentially created a primary battery, and everything that's in, around, and connected to that water is part of the galvanic couple here between dissimilar metals. Your swimming pool heater has metals in it. So what can happen is your heater can become the anode in the galvanic reaction. There's a cathode and an anode. The cathode receives cathodic protection, which is basically just enhanced protection against corrosion. But the anode, the least noble metal in the couple, receives the brunt of the damage, this destructive electromechanical damage, galvanic corrosion, and you'll experience advanced rates of decay of these metals. And so what do you do? Oh no, this is terrible. Well, install a sacrificial anode into your pool system. It's a great idea to have that anyway. It would be installed directly after the filter. But here's the thing. It needs to be tied into the equipotential bonding grid of the swimming pool. And so does your heater itself. If you go look at your heater, walk around your heater and look for a little copper bonding lug. And hopefully there's a wire connected to it. I mean, if you have multiple bonding lugs and only one wire, that's acceptable. You just want to find the wire. Do you have the wire connected to the copper lugs on the casing of your heater? Not every swimming pool heater is the same. If it's entirely plastic, then you wouldn't have that on the outside. But be aware, most pool heaters have some sort of metal casing, and there should be a bonding wire connected to it. And something just as innocent as not having that wire, which if you've been a follower of mine, I made a 50 video series about reviewing pool equipment installations. And I think it was something like 80 or 85% of the heaters were missing this bonding wire, thereby causing their heater to potentially be the anode in the galvanic couple. If we give a sacrificial anode to the system, especially located immediately adjacent to the heater, we give a lesser noble metal to the galvanic couple in order to corrode. We sacrifice this zinc disc inside of the sacrificial anode, and every 2 to 3 years, or when it shrinks in volume by half, you get rid of that bad boy and replace it for, I don't know, $70 or whatever, and you protect your heater. The heater is not only just not damaged, the heater is technically receiving cathodic protection, so it's going to have enhanced protection against corrosion. All of this sounds great, and we're not talking a lot of money, like $70 or something like that. And the knowledge to know that your pool heater, as well as all of your other pool equipment and all the metal in and around your pool, needs to be bonded. Please do not head outside and start trying to bond it yourself. I'll connect this up. Just contact a local electrician. Honestly, grounding and bonding in swimming pools is confusing enough that the average inexperienced electrician doesn't know about this stuff. It takes an experienced, skillful electrician who knows about grounding versus bonding in swimming pools, even to get the right answers when you're standing there, out in the field, out next to your pool, looking at the problem and talking about how to fix it. So don't go about trying to solve this one yourself, please. I would really appreciate that. If you found these tips helpful, which I really hope you did, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.